The arrival Admiral Vorthok stood on the command deck of his massive dreadnought, gazing down at the blue-green planet spinning slowly below. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among the Croctarian species. This conquest would be laughably easy. The planet's inhabitants had barely mastered basic spaceflight, still using chemical rockets like children playing with toys. The Croctarian Empire had conquered 47 worlds across the galaxy. Each time, the pattern was the same. Superior technology would overwhelm primitive defenses within hours. The natives would surrender, become slaves, and their world would be stripped of resources. Earth would be no different. "Begin the descent," Vorthok ordered, his voice echoing through the ship's corridors. "Target the rural areas first. We'll break their spirit before they can organize any meaningful resistance." 3,000 miles below, Dr. Sarah Chen was working, late in her laboratory at the Colorado Institute of Technology. The quantum physicist had been studying unusual energy signatures detected by deep space telescopes over the past month. Something was approaching Earth, something that defied conventional physics. The energy readings suggested technology far beyond human capabilities. Sarah's calculations were interrupted by a brilliant flash of light outside her window. She looked up to see massive shapes descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. Her heart raced as she realized her worst fears were becoming reality. The energy signatures hadn't been natural phenomena. They were alien spacecraft. 50 miles away, Marcus Thompson was checking on his cattle when the first ship landed in the valley below his ranch. The former Navy SEAL had retired to Colorado's mountains after 20 years of service, seeking peace and quiet. But his military instincts were still sharp, and they were screaming danger. The alien vessel was enormous, easily 500 feet long and shaped like a curved blade. Steam rose from its hull as it cooled from atmospheric entry. Marcus grabbed his binoculars and studied the ship carefully. Whatever these beings were, they hadn't come for a friendly visit. The weapons ports along the hull made that clear. Marcus reached for his satellite phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Alina, it's Marcus. We've got a situation, big time." Alina Rodriguez was under the hood of a vintage aircraft when her phone rang. The former Air Force pilot had been restoring a P-51 Mustang when the world changed forever. She listened to Marcus's urgent words, then looked up at the sky where she could see the alien ships descending. "I see them," she said grimly. "How many?" "I count at least 12 ships in my area alone." "Alina, these things are huge. We're talking about a full-scale invasion." Alina wiped grease from her hands and walked to her hangar's radio equipment. If Marcus was right, every minute counted. She began broadcasting on emergency frequencies, warning anyone who would listen. Admiral Vorthok watched the landing operations with satisfaction. His ground forces were deploying across the planet's surface, establishing bases in remote areas, where resistance would be minimal. The plan was simple: secure strategic locations, then demand the planet's surrender. Any who refused would be eliminated as examples to others. The first Croctarian soldiers emerged from their landing, ships wearing massive powered armor. Each warrior stood 9 feet tall, their natural reptilian strength enhanced by mechanical exoskeletons. Energy weapons hummed at their sides, capable of melting through steel. Personal shield generators created shimmering barriers around their bodies that could deflect any primitive projectile weapon, or so they believed. Marcus Thompson watched the alien soldiers through his scope. He'd been a sniper in the SEALs, and old habits died hard. The creatures were impressive, but they moved like they'd never faced real opposition. Their formations were sloppy, their tactics predictable. They were bullies who'd never met anyone. Willing to fight back, Marcus loaded a special round into his rifle. The bullet was designed to penetrate advanced body armor, its core made from depleted uranium. He'd kept a few souvenirs from his military days, never thinking he'd need them for something like this. The alien patrol was moving up the mountain path toward his ranch. Marcus steadied his breathing, lined up his shot, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck the lead alien center mass, passing through its energy shield like it wasn't there. The creature stumbled, purple blood flowing from the wound. The other aliens spun around, searching for the source of the attack. Marcus was already moving, using terrain he'd known for 15 years to stay hidden. He fired again, and another. Alien fell. The survivors began firing wildly at the mountainside, their energy weapons scorching rocks and trees. But Marcus was no longer there. Dr. Chun's laboratory was in chaos. Her computers were analyzing energy readings from the alien ships, and the results were disturbing. The technology was advanced, but not impossibly so. The aliens used particle beam weapons and electromagnetic shields, but both technologies had weaknesses that could be exploited. Sarah's fingers flew over her keyboard as she compiled her findings. The alien shields operated on a specific frequency that created interference with certain types of projectiles. But kinetic weapons with the right velocity and mass could penetrate them. The aliens' own energy weapons used focused electromagnetic pulses that could be disrupted by properly tuned interference patterns. She grabbed her phone and began calling every military contact she could remember. The information had to reach the right people before it was too late. Alina Rodriguez was airborne within an hour of the first landing. Her restored P-51 Mustang wasn't much compared to modern fighter jets, but it was what she had. More importantly, it was invisible to the alien sensors, which were designed to detect advanced military aircraft. She flew low over the valley where Marcus had reported the landing. The alien ship sat in the center of a farmer's field, its hull gleaming in the afternoon sun. Smaller craft were moving back and forth, ferrying soldiers and supplies. Alina counted at least 200 aliens on the ground. The aliens never saw her coming. The P-51's 650 caliber machine guns opened fire, strafing the landing zone. Alien soldiers scattered as bullets tore through their ranks. Their shields could stop individual shots, but not the concentrated fire of 6 heavy machine guns. Alina pulled up and banked for another pass. The aliens were firing back now, their energy weapons creating brilliant streaks of light in the sky. But they were shooting at a target that was already gone, their weapons too slow to track a fast-moving aircraft. As Alina made her second attack run, she saw something that made her smile. Other aircraft were converging on the landing site. Private, pilots, crop dusters, even a few helicopters. Word was spreading, and humans were responding. Admiral Vortak watched the tactical displays with growing concern. His ground forces were reporting unexpected resistance. The humans weren't running in terror as projected. Instead, they were fighting back with a coordination that suggested prior military training. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting communications traffic across the planet. The humans are sharing information about our technology and tactics. They're adapting faster than anticipated." Vorthek's clawed hands gripped the command console. Impossible. These are primitives. They should be cowering in their cities, begging for mercy. The humans appear to have significant military experience, sir. Our forces are encountering trained soldiers, not civilians. On the main display, reports were flooding in from landing sites across the globe. In Texas, human forces were using improvised explosives to disable Croctarian vehicles. In Australia, snipers were picking off alien officers from impossible distances. In northern Canada, humans were using the terrain itself as a weapon, luring aliens into traps in the wilderness. Dr. Chen's data was spreading through military networks worldwide. Human scientists were analyzing alien technology and finding ways to defeat it. Engineers were modifying weapons to exploit weaknesses in alien shields. The humans were doing something the Croctarians had never encountered before. They were learning. Marcus Thompson regrouped with Alina and a growing band of local residents. The farmer whose land had been invaded was named Bill Patterson, and he was angry. His grandfather had homesteaded this valley, and 3 generations of his family had worked the soil. The aliens had burned his crops and killed his livestock. They'd picked the wrong human to mess with. "We've got them confused," Marcus told the group. "They expected us to fold immediately, but we're not giving them that satisfaction. Sarah Chen's data shows their shields can be beaten. We just need to coordinate our attacks." Alina nodded toward the alien ship. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're not speaking English, but the tone suggests panic. They're calling for reinforcements. Then we better hit them hard before those reinforcements arrive," Bill Patterson said, chambering a round in his hunting rifle. "This is our land, and we're not giving it up without a fight." The battle for Earth was just beginning, but already the aliens were learning a terrible truth. They had underestimated their enemy. The humans weren't just primitives with simple weapons. They were a species forged by millennia of warfare. Survivors who had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain through determination and ingenuity. And they were very, very angry. The reckoning, the second wave of Croctarian reinforcements, arrived to find their first landing force in full retreat. Admiral Vorthok couldn't believe the reports flooding his command center. His supposedly superior forces were being systematically destroyed by creatures that should have been easy prey. "Sir, we've lost contact with Landing Zone 7 in Montana," his communications officer reported. The last transmission indicated they were surrounded by human forces using modified civilian vehicles as assault platforms. Vorthok's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Civilians? How can civilians pose a threat to our soldiers?" What the Admiral didn't understand was that he'd invaded a nation where military service was common, where hunting was a tradition, and where every citizen had the right to bear arms. The humans weren't just fighting with military weapons. They were using hunting rifles, shotguns, and even modified farming equipment Dr. Sarah Chen had established, herself as the unofficial coordinator of human resistance. Her laboratory had become a hub for analyzing alien technology and distributing countermeasures. Scientists from around the world were contributing data through secure networks, creating a global brain trust dedicated to defeating the invaders. "The alien ship hulls are vulnerable to shaped charges," she announced during a video conference with military leaders. "Their armor is designed to resist energy weapons, but conventional explosives can breach it. We need to target their power cores." In Colorado, Marcus Thompson was leading a combined force of military veterans and armed civilians. The group had grown from a handful of locals to over 300 fighters. They'd learned to use the mountains as cover, striking fast and disappearing before the aliens could respond. "Remember," Marcus told his team, These aliens are used to fighting in space where there's no cover. They don't understand guerrilla warfare. We use that against them. Alina Rodriguez had become the unofficial leader of the human Air Force. Her restored P-51 had been joined by dozens of other aircraft, from crop dusters to private jets. The pilots were using tactics that confused the aliens, flying low and fast, appearing suddenly to strike before vanishing again. The aliens' advanced targeting systems were designed to track military aircraft with predictable flight patterns. They couldn't adapt to the chaotic, individualistic fighting style of human pilots who made their own rules. Bill Patterson had turned his farm into a fortress. The alien landing site was now surrounded by earthworks and hidden bunkers. His neighbors had rallied to his cause, bringing everything from hunting rifles to homemade rockets. The aliens were trapped in their own landing zone, unable to advance or retreat. They burned my crops, Bill told a news crew that had somehow made it to the battle zone. Now they're going to learn what American farmers do to pests. Admiral Vorthok was facing a crisis unlike anything in Croctarian military history. His forces were designed for conventional warfare between spacefaring civilizations. They had no experience fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of engagement. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are using primitive but effective tactics. They're employing asymmetric warfare strategies that our forces aren't trained to counter." The admiral studied the tactical displays. Human forces were appearing everywhere, using weapons that barely registered on their sensors. The humans were turning their own primitive nature into an advantage, fighting with a creativity that the highly regimented Croctarian military couldn't match. "Order all forces to fall back to the landing sites," Vorthok commanded. "We'll establish defensive perimeters until we can develop new tactics." But the humans weren't giving them that chance. Dr. Chun's latest breakthrough was spreading through the resistance networks. She'd discovered that the aliens' communication systems could be disrupted by specific radio frequencies. Human ham radio. Operators around the world were coordinating to jam alien communications, leaving their forces isolated and confused. "They're cutting us off from each other," Marcus reported to his team. "Now we hit them while they're blind." The coordinated attack began at dawn. Human forces struck simultaneously at alien positions across the globe. In the Colorado Mountains, Marcus led an assault on the main landing site, while Alina provided air support. Bill Patterson's farmers attacked from the south, their intimate knowledge of the terrain giving them a crucial advantage. The aliens fought back desperately, but they were out of their element. Their energy weapons were powerful but slow to recharge. Their shields were strong but had limited power cells. The humans had learned to exploit every weakness, hitting fast and hard before disappearing. Alina screamed over the battlefield in her P-51, her machine guns chattering. Behind her, a formation of crop dusters was dropping improvised explosives on alien positions. The aliens' anti-aircraft weapons couldn't track the small, agile aircraft. "Asterisk, this is Eagle Leader," Alina radioed. "I'm seeing panic in their ranks. They're breaking formation." Admiral Vorthok watched his invasion crumble in real time. His forces were reporting massive casualties, equipment failures, and complete loss of tactical cohesion. The humans were fighting with a ferocity that defied all military logic. "Sir," his intelligence officer said quietly, "I'm detecting massive human military mobilization worldwide. They're moving conventional forces to support the civilian resistance." Realized with growing horror that the humans weren't just fighting with militia forces. They were bringing their entire military apparatus to bear. And unlike the Croctarians, who relied on technology and overwhelming force, the humans were fighting with something far more dangerous. They were fighting for their home. The battle reached its climax when Dr. Chen's team successfully hacked into the alien communication network. The breakthrough allowed human forces to coordinate their attacks with military precision while keeping the aliens in the dark about their movements. Marcus Thompson led the final assault on the Colorado landing site. His force had grown to over 1,000 fighters, including military veterans, hunters, farmers, and anyone else willing to defend their world. They moved through the mountains like ghosts, surrounding the alien position from all sides. The aliens made their last stand around their grounded ship. Their energy weapons lit up the dawn sky, but they were outnumbered and outfought. The humans pressed forward with relentless determination, using every trick of warfare they'd learned over centuries of conflict. When the alien shields finally failed, the humans showed no mercy. These invaders had come to enslave their world, to steal their resources and destroy their civilization. The punishment for that crime was swift and final. Admiral Vorthok made the hardest decision of his military career. All forces begin immediate evacuation. We're abandoning the invasion. The surviving Croctarian ships lifted off from Earth's surface, many of them damaged and burning. They retreated to their fleet in orbit, leaving behind equipment, supplies, and the bodies of their fallen comrades. As the alien ships disappeared into space, humans around the world celebrated. They'd done the impossible, defeating a technologically superior enemy through courage, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Dr. Chen stood in her laboratory, looking at the data they'd collected on alien technology. The knowledge would advance human science by decades. But more importantly, it had shown humanity something about itself. They were stronger than they'd ever imagined. Marcus Thompson returned to his ranch, which had become a symbol of human resistance. The valley was scarred by battle, but it was still home. As he watched the sun set over the mountains, he reflected on what they'd accomplished. Alina Rodriguez landed her P-51 for the last time, the aircraft's engine smoking from the strain of combat. She'd flown 17 missions against the aliens, her vintage fighter proving that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Bill Patterson stood in his burned fields, but he wasn't discouraged. The soil was still good, and his family had rebuilt before. They'd rebuild again, stronger than ever. Admiral Vorthok's fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of their defeat back to the Croctarian Empire. For the first time in their history, they'd encountered a species that refused to be conquered. The humans had taught them a lesson they would never forget. Earth was no longer just another primitive world waiting to be harvested. It was the home of a species that would fight for every inch of ground, that would turn their own supposed weaknesses into strengths, and that would never, ever give up. The aliens had set foot on Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they'd awakened a sleeping giant, and that giant was very, very angry. As the alien ships vanished into the depths of space, carrying their terrible news across the galaxy, one thing was certain: the next time anyone threatened Earth, they would know they were picking a fight with humanity, and humanity fought to win.